Afternoon, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for choosing the right ladder or choosing your ladder, the first webinar in our 2022 Ladder Safety Webinar Series in partnership with Werner. My name is Stephanie Matos, and I'm here from the American Ladder Institute. I'll be passing things over shortly to Mike Melton, Director of Project Management at Werner, who will lead today's presentation. Before we begin, a few quick introductions and announcements for those new to this webinar series. The American Ladder Institute, or ALI for short, is a not-for-profit association dedicated to promoting the safe use of ladders. Its members are affiliated with the ladder and ladder component manufacturing industry, and ALI is the American National Standards Institute approved developer of ladder safety standards. Each March, the ALI and its partners sponsor National Ladder Safety Month, a campaign all about promoting the safe use of ladders both at home and at work. This year is the 6th celebration of National Ladder Safety Month, and we are excited to bring you this series of webinars covering how to safely choose and use ladders. Partnering with ALI for this series is Werner. Werner actively advocates for ladder safety and accident prevention through the range of innovative product solutions, in-person training, and online educational programs. Today's presentation is meant to be interactive. Throughout this presentation, we will be taking questions from attendees using the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your screen. If we need to take any time at the end, we will also provide time at the end to answer any remaining questions, but we will take questions throughout this webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share the recording with all attendees later this week, along with a PDF of the presentation. This recording, along with the upcoming webinars for this month, will be hosted online at laddersafetymonth.com. With that, I'll pass it over to Mike.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for attending today. As Stephanie pointed out, I'm going to be covering how to choose a ladder today. We do want this to be conversational, so if you do have questions, feel free to type them in and we will address them when they come up. So as we're kind of walking through the slides, feel free to put your questions in there in the chat and we will address them. So when we're talking about how to choose a ladder, and many of you have wondered, is this the right ladder for the job at hand? Today we're going to cover the key areas you need to consider when selecting a ladder, including the ladder type, the ladder height, the duty rating, and the material that that ladder is made out of. And we're going to walk through these and give you advice on how to choose the right ladder for the job. This first slide what I want to show is, ladders come in many different varieties. We're showing a fiberglass step ladder in the upper left, a fiberglass 3-in-1 ladder right next to it, which is a new type of ladder style. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Multi-purpose ladder below, and then a couple of extension ladders off to the right. So the most common are steps and extensions, and we're going to use those primarily as our examples today. But please know that there are many other types of ladders that are out there. You can go to resources like wernerco.com and click on products to learn about all the different types of ladders that are out there. There's actually a link in this presentation that'll take you to an excellent guide on ladder safety, and it covers much of what we're doing today and quite a bit more. All right, so the key takeaway here is there's lots of different ladder styles. The first thing you want to do when you're trying to choose a ladder is you want to think about your surroundings. Where are you going to be working? Are you working indoors? Are you working outside? Will you have something to lean your ladder up against, or do you need a freestanding ladder in the middle of the room? Answering those questions are going to start you in the right direction. For example, if you need a freestanding ladder because there's no surface to lean against, then you'll most likely choose a step ladder or some other freestanding ladder to complete that job. If, however, you do have a wall to lean the ladder up against, then you can choose an extension ladder for that particular task. It all starts with your surroundings and the type of work you'll be completing. I've included some basic reach heights here as well because step ladders are limited in terms of how high you can reach. So in some cases, you may have to use an extension. Now, once you've selected the type of the ladder, the next thing you have to consider is how tall the ladder is, or the ladder height. To understand the height of a ladder that's needed, first you need to know what height you must reach to complete your task at hand. Once you've measured the height of the surface that you're trying to reach or work on, say it's 10 feet, then you are ready to proceed. That 10-foot measurement, by the way, is what we reference when we talk about reach height that you need to get to. So when you're standing on the ladder, you can reach a certain height up above your head, and that's going to be your reach height. That's what we consider where you can get to based on the ladder size. And different ladder types have rules about the highest rung or step that you can stand on, which is called the highest standing level. Many people stand on step ladders. They climb up above the stepping step from the top, and you're not allowed to stand on those top two surfaces. And so, for example, if you determine that you need a step ladder for the job because you need a freestanding ladder, then you need to know those rules. And the highest step you can stand on is 2 steps below the top, approximately 2 feet below the top of the ladder. Now, this helps you from preventing losing your balance and falling when you're up too high on the ladder. It's not allowed to stand above the surface on a traditional step ladder. On an extension ladder, the rules are a little bit different. The rules on an extension ladder is you can't stand above the 4th rung from the top of the ladder. So you need to know the rules between the different types of ladders. The good thing is that on each of the ladders, you're going to see warnings, and you'll have labels that are on the product that will tell you that you can't stand above a certain level. That'll clue you in. There's also ID labels, which we're going to cover here in a little bit, on the sides of each of these ladders that'll tell you what your highest standing level is. So a little bit more about step ladders. Step ladders are named for the height at the very top of the ladder. So a 6-foot step ladder is approximately 6 feet tall. And when you know the rule about being 2 feet below the top, you know that your highest standing level is approximately 4 feet off the ground. Earlier we said let's assume you need to reach a surface that's, say, 10 feet off the ground. To determine if you'll be able to reach that surface, you need to take your individual reach height. Your individual reach height changes based on the height, how your height is. So you take the highest standing level of the ladder, and then you add your height, and then you add 12 inches above that, which basically simulates how high you can reach with your arm. So I'll kind of walk you through a quick example, and we'll talk about these graphics. So let's assume that you're 5 foot 6 inches tall, and you want your max reach height then would be 6 feet 6 inches tall, which is 12 inches above your height. If you stand on a 6-foot ladder that has the highest standing surface of 4 feet, then you're going to add 4 feet plus 6 foot 6 inches, which gives you 10 feet 6 inches. That's your individual reach height. So as long as you know your height and you know the highest standing level on a ladder, you can figure out where you can reach on any ladder style, just depending on which style you're using and where that max reach height is. All right, great. So just again, talking about step ladders in particular. Step ladders, again, are named for the total height of a step ladder. And so when you're looking at a 6-foot step ladder, that's approximately 6 feet tall. So when you know the rules about where you can stand on a step ladder, knowing that it's 2 feet below, that means your highest standing level is about 4 feet off the ground. Earlier, we said, let's assume you had to reach about 10 feet off the ground. If you want to know if you can reach that on a particular ladder, you'll need to figure out your individual reach height. Your individual reach height is simply your height plus 12 inches. That assumes you can reach about 12 inches above your head whenever you're working. So you take your height, add 12 inches, that's your individual reach height. If you take your individual reach height and add it to the highest standing level, that's going to tell you where you can reach on that ladder. So on a 6-foot step ladder, the highest standing level is 4 feet off the ground. And so if you take your height, let's just say you are 6 feet tall plus another 12 inches, so you could reach 7 feet in the air, plus the 4 feet, which was the highest standing level, 7 feet plus 4 feet, you'd be reaching 11 feet off the ground. So that's how you can look when you're looking at ladders to be able to determine, am I going to be able to reach what it is that I'm trying to do? First, measure where you've got to go to, if it's a window or if it's a shelf or a ceiling fan or whatever it is that you're trying to reach when you're trying to do the work. And then go ahead and figure out your individual reach height and what's the highest safe standing level on that particular type of ladder. Was that good, Stephanie?
Great improvement in my personal opinion, and chat saying that it's a little fading in and out. And what I can tell for everybody else in chat, you might want to turn your audio up because we did test this in pre-call and we had a couple of issues before then. So we are working with what we've got. We are going to ask the gods and the goddesses of the internet to be kind to us for the rest of the session. So thank you all for giving us your good real-time feedback. But we're going to just keep going. And we'll see what we can do afterwards. Okay? Thanks, everybody.
I'll try to speak slowly and clearly. So
thank you.
All right. So if you're going to be working from the same height often, then the best option that you might want to consider is a product like the podium ladder, which gives you the benefits of a step ladder, being that it has the same standing height, but it adds a large platform to stand on and work from instead of a single step. And this makes for a more comfortable standing surface, especially if you're going to be standing in one position for a really long time. It avoids a condition that we refer to or users refer to as ladder foot, which comes from standing on a narrow step for too long. The other nice thing about a podium ladder is that it has a 34-inch, the Werner version has a 34-inch high guardrail on the ladder, which wraps around the user and helps them keep their balance and holds tools and equipment for the job at the end. So just again, know that there's other styles of step ladders, like a podium ladder, and you'll see on the side of the ladder, it will tell you the highest standing surface, which is 4 feet off the ground, same as the step ladder in this instance. But it has a little bit of different feature set and could make you more comfortable and feel a little bit more stable when you're working from that height. All right, so now we're going to talk about extension ladders. If you choose an extension ladder for the job, you need to know that you can't stand above the 4th rung from the top. And again, there's going to be labels on the extension ladder that will tell you where you can or cannot stand. But this helps prevent the user from putting too much weight at the very top of the ladder. And it prevents the extension ladder from then sliding out from under the user. So the same math applies to extension ladders that apply to step ladders. If you look up the highest standing level on your extension ladder and you add your individual reach height, that will determine what's the max reach height that you can get to on that ladder. Now we've got a graphic here that shows some of the support points for other ladders. And again, if you go to the presentation that goes back to the wernerco.com, we have a lot of this information in our catalog and a lot of this information is on our website. So if you ever wanted to reference back again, you can look there for that information. But what we have here is when you put an extension ladder up against a building, we have the highest gutter or support point on the side of the building. Just know that it's important that you're not having too much of the ladder sticking up above that support point if you're going to climb up there. So it's just, again, it's all about safety. It's all about making sure that your ladder stays in the right orientation. And so that's just a good rule of thumb for the highest support point for each of those ladder heights. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out, there's a ladder style that's been getting more and more popular out there, which we refer to as a lean safe ladder or a 3-in-1 ladder. Now, this ladder is a little bit unique in that it is a step ladder, which is shown on the far left. It can also be a leaning ladder, which is shown in the middle. And then it can be a straight ladder, which is shown on the right, because you can flip those legs on the back straight up and down so you can get to a higher point. Now you'll notice I have arrows on here that show from this step in the different orientations. That's the highest standing level for these different ladder configurations. Again, it's marked on the product where you can or can't stand, but I just want to call your attention to it because it does change depending on the way you're using the ladders. And these new styles of ladders, they're great, they're versatile, you can use them for many different applications. However, just be aware that it's not the same standing level in every mode that you're in. So you can see the box in the upper left shows you can get about 10 feet off the ground in step ladder mode. You have to go one step down if you're going to lean the ladder, and that's 9 feet then is what your reach height would be. And then on the far right, if you want to move up, you can actually go up to that one rung above, which gets you about 13 height of reach. So just be aware, different ladder styles have different rules, and be safe when you're using them by making sure that you know where the highest standing level is for each ladder type you're using.
We do have a question. It's a real
Uh-huh.
question. We have a question from Greg. Greg's question is, why don't ladder manufacturers produce a step ladder that eliminates the step below the top to prevent users from standing on it?
That's an excellent question, and we have talked about that. The closest ladder that we have that would do that is like our podium style, the one that we talked about. I'll go back to that real quick. Whoops. This ladder here over on the right-hand side, it doesn't have a middle step above the platform standing level. But on a traditional step ladder, the reason why they keep that step in place is to prevent people from falling through the middle or miss when they're leaning up against the ladder to be able to do work. It gives you, there's a couple of reasons. One, it gives you a point where you can lean up against, gives you a little bit more support because you're not typically standing straight up and down, which you might be on a podium type ladder. And then secondly, it also creates a little bit more of a stable structure for the ladder that prevents walking. And many of you know what walking a ladder is, but if your ladder, think of walking a ladder as kind of the ladder wobbling or scooting along the floor when you're on top of it. The stronger the structure, the more support you have, which these steps and knee braces help create a really rigid step ladder. The more you have of that, the less likely they are to walk. So those are a couple reasons why a traditional step ladder still has that step in place. But there's new styles like a podium, for example, that doesn't have it. And then it's changed a little bit to give you a much bigger platform and a much higher guardrail. So you're not worried about stepping into that middle where that step needs to be.
Thank you. Those are all our questions for now.
That's it for now. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is duty rating. So duty rating is really important because the weight of the ladder needs to support a particular job. It's calculated by taking your body weight, so your weight with all of your equipment, and then adding the weight of any additional tools or perhaps parts that you're carrying when you're going up on the ladder. So it's a total weight of you and everything you bring up there with you. The ANSI code, which governs these types of ladders, has basically 5 different categories. They have a 200-pound or a type 3 or light duty ladder. Those are not as common as they used to be. Then there's a 225-pound or type 2, which is a medium duty level of a ladder. That's probably your more entry-level ladder styles that you'll see, or ladder duty ratings that you'll see out there. 250 pounds in the blue there, which is type 1, it's considered heavy duty. 300 pounds or type 1A, or it's called extra heavy duty. And then 375 pounds, type 1AA, or special duty. So you'll see it referenced a couple of different ways, whether it's in the numeric, like a 300-pound, or whether it's in the duty rating, which is a type 1A. You'll see that listed a couple different ways, but that's what they mean when they're talking about the different types of ladders. And again, that is the weight, your weight, plus all of the equipment and parts and everything else that you're carrying with you in order to make sure that you're not overloading that ladder. You want to make sure you have a ladder that is a higher duty rating than all of that combined. Here's an example showing how to calculate the duty rating that you need from a ladder. So in the example above, one would choose a 250-pound ladder, a type 1 ladder, because the weight of their body plus the toolbox is 235 pounds, right? You have a 200-pound person carrying a toolbox that's 35 pounds, total weight's 235. You would not select a 225-pound ladder because you would exceed the duty rating. You're too heavy for that. So you'd want to go to the 250-pound or type 1 in this instance because you would be under the 250 pounds. The table on the right lists some of the common items you might want to carry on a ladder. So when you're thinking about things like a ceiling fan, approximately 30 pounds in weight, a garage door opener, it's approximately 40 pounds in weight, a bundle of shingles could be approximately 70 pounds. So it's good to know the weight of whatever you're carrying with you when you go up on the ladder, just to make sure that you are feeling safe and you're not going to overload that ladder. Now, a lot of times I get questions around, can you choose a duty rating that is higher than what you need? And why would you not do this? The answer is yes, right? You can choose to use a ladder. Even in this example here, let's say the person is 235 pounds with the equipment. They could choose to use a 300-pound ladder. There's nothing wrong with that. And what happens is that the higher duty rating ladders will create a stiffer ladder. It's more of a structurally sound ladder, so because it can handle a lot more weight to go onto it. So you can choose a ladder that's quite a bit higher than what you need, but there's going to be trade-offs. Generally speaking, higher duty ratings increase the cost of the ladder, and a higher duty rating generally increases the weight of the ladder because you're adding material to the product. And so it needs to be stronger, so it's going to cost more, and it's generally going to weigh more. And so you want to use something that is useful for most of your applications. You don't want to always buy a 375-pound ladder, for example, just because you know that'll work every single time. You may want to have a 250, or you might want to have a 300-pound. Just depends on your weight and the type of work you're going to be doing on that ladder. Now, the last thing to consider when you're choosing a ladder is the material of the ladder. So fiberglass or aluminum. These are the two most prevalent ladder materials that are out there. A long time ago, they used to sell wood ladders. That's something that's gone away quite a while ago, but fiberglass ladders have taken their place. They're lighter, they're more durable. When you're looking at the type of ladder, you want to go back to the first question that we had, which is, what are your surroundings? When you want to look at, your surroundings, you want to look and see, are there any hazards that could be present? So you may have chosen a step ladder for your particular application because it's a freestanding ladder and you don't have any surface to lean against. But now you want to look and see, is electrical power present? Is there any risk of electrical power? And the reason why you want to know that is because fiberglass is an insulated material and aluminum is electrically conductive. So when you're looking at aluminum, there's key advantages to having an aluminum ladder. They tend to be lighter weight, so that makes them easier to transport, easier to get in and out of a truck, easier to carry up and down your stairs. An extension ladder that's made of aluminum is generally easier to get on and off of a ladder rack, for example. However, if you're going to be around electricity and you're going to be working on electricity, you want to know that it's not recommended to be using an aluminum ladder. And in fact, when you look at commercial job sites, many commercial job sites will not allow any aluminum ladders on the job at all, just because of the risk. Even though the hazard of electricity is not present at that moment, it doesn't mean that something might not happen during the construction of that facility where an electrical hazard could be present. So a lot of people have basically said you're not allowed to have aluminum step ladders or extension ladders on a commercial site. In which case, your obvious choice is going to be fiberglass. Fiberglass is a strong and durable material, and the rails are non-conductive. There's a whole series of tests that are done on fiberglass to ensure that the fiberglass rails will not conduct electricity. One of the other big advantages here is that the colors make them highly visible when you're on a job site. So these orange rails, for example, that are in this picture, really do stand out. Now, a lot of times I get questions around the colors of ladders, and this is something I just want to quickly address. Across ladder manufacturers, colors are not always the same. So you'll always want to pay attention to ID labels or other pieces of information that tell you what the duty rating is on a ladder. However, with Werner ladders, the Werner ladders will have, generally speaking, will have the rail color matching the duty rating. And so the way that we set up our ladders is an orange ladder is going to be a 300-pound ladder. A blue ladder will be a 250-pound ladder. a green ladder will be a 225-pound ladder, and a yellow ladder will be 375. So we try to keep that fairly consistent across all Werner ladders, but I would say that the one thing that you should always look to is what's called an ID label. And I'm going to cover an ID label next that gives you so much information, really important to know where an ID label is on your ladder. Stephanie, any questions on the material choice or why or why not you choose one type of ladder?
No questions from the audience, but I have a question. Why would you pick one ladder over the other besides of like a duty rating? Like just for for the type of work that you're doing, and like maybe you're going to get into this later, but like how do you determine what kind of ladder that you should use for a job or for your life?
Yeah, so if you're in the material aspect of it, you're going to want to choose again based on the electrical hazard. I think that's probably the biggest reason why. And again, if you want to use something that's around electricity, you're going to be doing electrical work, you're going to want to use a fiberglass ladder if you can. And again, like I said, on a commercial job site, you may not even be allowed to use a aluminum ladder. A fiberglass ladder is going to be allowed on all the different job sites. An aluminum ladder would be allowed more residential, where you're not working on electrical jobs. So that's pretty much the main decision point between them. The other advantages of a fiberglass ladder is because it's a plastic composite. Basically, what happens is if you were to drop the ladder on its side, the ladders will bounce back. So if you drop the bottom of the ladder, for example, it hits the ground, on an aluminum ladder, it might get dented or it might bend. On a fiberglass ladder, especially one of these that we're showing in the pictures here that have the Werner edge bracing at the bottom, those will flex and bounce back again so that they won't get damaged. So fiberglass is very durable. It's a more durable material than aluminum. But the main reason people choose one over the other is if they're going to be doing electrical work or not.
Oh, all right. So thanks. Wait, we got another one. Greg was typing while I was asking. Thanks, Greg. So another question from Greg. It says, if a ladder has noticeable damage to a rung or side rail, is it repairable or must it be replaced?
So generally speaking, if the damage is to the rail, the ladder needs to be replaced. If the damage is to a rung on an extension ladder, there are qualified companies that you can reach out to have that replaced, but it's not something that a user would typically do. So I would say that generally speaking, if the ladder is damaged, you're going to want to replace that ladder because if you're using it on a commercial site and you continue to use a ladder that's damaged, like one of the rear horizontals is bent or a step is damaged, like you said, or the side rail is damaged, you could get written up and fined by OSHA, which is, because they're looking out to make sure that you're doing things the safest way possible. And so if you use a ladder that's damaged, that's not the right way to use it. It's not safe. So you do want to replace that ladder. Another question that comes up related to that is labels. And, we're starting to cover these ID labels a little bit here, but if your labels are damaged on the side of your ladder to the point where you can't read them anymore, your labels need to be replaced as well. And that's because on the side of the ladders, they have instructions and safety warning hazards that technically you're supposed to read every time that you go and use the ladder. And if you can't read those, then someone might use the ladder in a way that it wasn't intended. I talked about the highest standing level. Your labels are telling you where the highest standing level is. Many people know the rules of the road, so to speak, right, from years of work. But if you have someone who's less experienced, those labels have to be able to communicate where they can and cannot stand. So if your labels get damaged, even though the ladder is still structurally sound, you're going to want to contact us and get a label replacement kit, which we can send out, and then you can add, you can put new labels back on your ladder.
Thank you.
Anything else, Stephanie?
Nope, that's all for now.
All right, cool. All right, so then ID labels. This is probably one of the most important labels on the side of your ladder. It's called an ID label, and every ANSI certified ladder has one of these. You'll find the highest standing level, you'll find the ladder size, you'll find the duty rating printed out on this label. And it's required to be in a highly visible area, usually eye level on the side of the ladder, so it should be easy to find. Regardless of what manufacturer you're looking at for the ladders, ANSI, the certifying agency, dictates where this label needs to be. So you're always going to find this label between 4 feet and 6 feet off the ground. It's always going to be approximately at eye level because it's so important. It has so much really important information. Right at the top there, again, you can see the duty rating. And so it tells you right off the bat, how heavy can you be with all of your equipment to go up on that ladder. It tells you that maximum reach height, or more importantly, the highest standing level. And if you're taller or you're shorter, you can figure out your own individual reach height, again, based on your height plus 12 inches. So it's easy to take this information that's on the ID label on the side of the ladder and know, is this the right ladder for me? Am I heavy enough, or is this ladder strong enough to be able to carry me? Is it tall enough for me to be able to get to what I need to get to? Or do I need to go select another ladder, maybe an 8-foot step ladder instead of a 6-foot ladder, or a 10-foot step ladder instead of a 6-foot step ladder? All that, again, is all based on understanding where the highest standing level is and what your individual reach height may be. So again, going over really how to choose a ladder, it really comes down to these 5 or 6 items. The first one is choose the type of ladder based on your environment or your surroundings. So if you have the ability to lean a ladder up against a wall, then you have a certain number of products that will work leaning up against the wall. Like we said, we have the leaning ladders, we have extension ladders. Those types of ladders are great if you have a wall to be able to lean up against. If you're working in the middle of a room, you don't have a wall to lean against. You won't have an option of using an extension ladder, for example. And so you're going to want to choose a product more like a step ladder, something that we would consider to be a freestanding ladder that you can set up anywhere and climb on that ladder. The next thing you want to look at is the ladder height. Because remember, you need to be able to figure out your reach height, which is your the highest standing level, plus your individual reach height. And again, I know I've said it a few times, but it can be confusing for people. So it's, again, take your height, add 12 inches, that's your individual reach height, and then figure out where the highest standing level is, add those two together, that's how high you can reach on that ladder. That's probably one of the most common things that people don't get right, is understanding what size ladder they need for the job. And so, I can't stress that enough to make sure that you have the right ladder for the job, because that's what tends to lean people towards doing unsafe behavior, like standing on the very top of a step ladder. What happened is the person didn't grab an 8-foot ladder and they only had a 6-foot ladder handy. If you know how high you got to go, you can always be safe by never exceeding the max standing level. The next thing you want to do is choose the strength or the duty rating of the ladder, which again is your weight plus the tools and equipment that you need to carry, not just your weight. So please make sure to add up. And some things are heavier than you may think. So it's always good to double check how much weight you're going to be bringing up on that ladder. The next one is choose the material, because duty ratings and sizes, we've got them in aluminum ladders, you can find them in fiberglass ladders, you can find them in both versions, extensions, step ladders, many different types of ladders will come both in fiberglass or aluminum. One of the key things for you to remember is fiberglass is a very durable material, meaning if you drop it, it's probably not going to get damaged like an aluminum ladder might. And then secondly, if you're going to be doing any work around electricity, or if you're going to be in an environment that might have live electrical wires around the job site, you're not going to want to use an aluminum ladder, because the aluminum side rails will conduct electricity. The fiberglass side rails on a fiberglass ladder will not conduct electricity. So it's much safer to always choose a fiberglass ladder if you're going to be working anywhere around electricity or around other people who are possibly doing electrical work. The next thing is to always reference the ID label and really all the labels, the warning labels and such that are on the side of the ladder. Make sure you know where it is, make sure that you've read it and that you can read it, because you don't want to have to, you don't want a label that's illegible, you don't want a label that's peeled off and fall into the garbage, because that you may know how to use that ladder, but the next person that uses it may not, and they may benefit from understanding what that label had to say. And lastly, always be safe. Make sure to read all the safety labels. Make sure to know how to use your ladder. Make sure to understand what you can and cannot do when you're on the ladder. I know we're going to be having this ladder series, which is going to talk more about the things that you can do on and off the ladder moving forward. But always be safe. Just make sure you know what you're doing and you feel comfortable up on the ladder. So Stephanie, that was the material I had. Again, if there's more questions, certainly happy to get into any kind of detail. I'd love to, be able to answer you guys' questions while we've got each other on the phone right now.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a bunch of questions coming in, so let's go. We've got one question from Greg. Greg's question is, does Werner advocate a certain method to dispose of damaged ladders?
The best way, well, one thing that I would say is if you're going to dispose of a damaged ladder, it's always good to basically cut down the ladder. And that's just to make sure that someone's not going to come through and garbage pick that ladder and try to use it again. That would be the only thing that I would say in particular that would be good. So if you've got a rail that's damaged, it might be good just to cut through the rail all the way and just take those legs off the ladder so that somebody doesn't try to take it out of the garbage. Even though you know it's damaged, some people have done that in the past and gotten themselves injured.
Okay. Thanks for that. And then Sherry has a question about labels. Can you order or download replacement labels?
Yes, there's replacement label kits that are available. If you call our customer service line, they can send out what you need. Generally speaking, if you're going to order new labels, you'll just need to know what type of ladder that you have and what the duty rating is of that ladder. So if you have a 6-foot fiberglass step ladder, you just want to let them know that's what you have, and they'll go ahead and make sure that you can get the right label kit sent out to you so that you can go ahead and put those labels back on the ladder.
I didn't know that. Thank you. Thank you, Sherry, for asking the question. So there we go. Do we have any other questions? Anything in chat? So far, those are all of our questions we have. So I'll give it another couple of seconds for people to type and all of those things.
We do have more programs coming up, so I just want to pull this slide up so that you can see what's the next round of webinars that we're going to be doing, that our team members are going to be doing with safety before the first step, safety while climbing, and then safety at the top. I touched on some of those items, and I know that the team will be referencing back to this presentation in those future webinars as well, because it's all related. It's not just about, just because you have the right ladder, then it's all about, again, how do you inspect the ladder? How do you use the ladder? And how are you safe while you're working from that ladder? It's all interrelated.
There we go. Thank you also for putting up the schedule for the rest of the month. Appreciate it. I appreciate it. We have a comment from Eric. Eric says, thank you for providing all the information you shared. Yes. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for reminding us to thank Mike. Yes. Another question from Greg. Greg asks, is Werner developing any new technologies into their ladder designs?
We are and we have. Thanks for asking that, Greg. I did not put Greg up to this. We have a new ladder style. Actually, it's an extension ladder called our Glide Safe ladder. Definitely something that I would definitely check out. The Glide Safe, what makes it unique is we built in a lift assist system into the extension ladder. So if anyone's ever used an extension ladder, especially a longer extension ladder, when you pull the rope to be able to extend the ladder, it can be quite heavy and you kind of have to lean your weight into it. That makes it hard to keep the ladder balanced. So in order to create a safer ladder and have less fatigue, we added this lift assist, which basically when you pull the rope, it will feel like a ladder that's half the weight of the existing extension ladder. So a 40-foot extension ladder will feel like a 20-foot extension ladder when you extend it. It's really amazing if you haven't checked it out. The other benefit of it is when you're bringing the ladder down, when you're lowering the ladder, people often complain about rope burn in their hand because you're letting the rope slide through your hand as you're bringing that extension down. And the other thing that the Glide Safe does is it slows the descent of the ladder. And so that ladder can come down in a really nice controlled manner. Makes it super easy to be able to manage a ladder. And oftentimes when you might have two people working on a particular ladder to extend it, you may only have one person now on those longer ladders because it feels like half the weight. So again, I would check that out. The Glide Safe is it's the model, and it's also the technology that's in that ladder.
Innovations from Werner. Oh, whoa, we've got questions coming up in the chat. Yes, let's go, discussion. Okay, we've got a question from Jason in the Q&A, and then I will go to chat. So it'll be Jason, then Fran, then Alexandra. So Jason's question is, what if you cannot determine labeling of your current ladder for a replacement label?
That is the challenge. You do need to know what the duty rating is because the kits are different for the different style ladders. So one thing that I would say is this is a way that you can handle it. If you call customer care and you have a ladder that you really don't know what it is, the ladder labels are badly damaged, a lot of times you can take pictures of the ladder and send that into the customer care agent as well. And they can reach out to members of my team or the engineering team. We can go through and look to see if we can recognize what it is. It's never a guarantee, but different ladders have, they have different styles to them, different components. And a lot of times we can identify what it is based on some of those pictures. But they do have to be some pretty decent pictures from a couple of different angles to really be able to see what that ladder is. Usually, I would say that the rule of thumb is to replace your labels when they get damaged. Don't wait until the labels are so bad that they're not readable anymore, because then that's exactly the problem you run into.
There we go. Okay, so for the chat questions, Fran's question says, did I hear that it said the slides are available? Oh, that's no question for me. Fran, yes. The slides will be available with the recording. They will be recorded. They will be available once this webinar concludes. So a question from Alexandra, the lift lower assist on the Glide Safe is very innovative. And also a thank you for your time. It was very informative.
Well, thank you very much. I would recommend you guys find out where you can buy them a lot of different places, but Home Depot, Lowe's carries them, but you can also get them at different pro distributors. And you got to try it. It's a really, really cool feature. I'm not just saying that, just because we make them. If anybody came out with this, I think it would be worth trying out.
Alvin also co-signs the Glide Safe ladder. So
nice.
There you go. Double cosigns. Greg has a question. I think we discussed this earlier in the presentation, but just want to make sure that we were all on the same page. Greg's question is, does the color of a fiberglass ladder dictate its duty rating?
So that's a great question. And I would say with a Werner ladder, it's brand specific, okay? So the colors are not an ANSI code requirement. The colors are a Werner creation that we started using probably over 30 years ago. So generally speaking, if you have a Werner ladder, that generally is correct. So an orange, again, is a 300 pound. A blue rail would be a 250 pound. A green rail would be a 225 pound. And a yellow rail would typically be a 375 pound. There's always exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that's correct if you are using a Werner. If you're using a different brand, they do all kinds of different things. So for a Werner, that's generally correct.
Great. Wonderful. All right. Final call. Any questions, comments in the chat or the Q&A? Because if that's all, that's it. We have reached a nice stopping point. We have no more questions in the chat. Lots of thank yous in the chat and Q&A. So yes, you're welcome, Yoli. Truly very helpful. Oh, oh, Michael's question, why not make all extension ladders glide safe? The eternal question.
That's a great idea. Stay tuned.
Right, exactly. So yes, with that, truly, we have reached the end of our presentation. I want to thank everybody for the discussion today, and I want to thank everybody for being patient with us while we figured out that technical stuff at the top of the webinar and all of those things. So I want to again thank everybody for joining us today, and Mike for sharing his expertise with us. We do hope that you have enjoyed this year's ladder safety webinar series, the first part in our ladder safety webinar series, and that we'll see you next week for our next webinar, which will be Safety Before the First Step on March 15th at 1:00 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that you will continue to find the recording of each webinar in the series at Ladder Safety Series online at laddersafetymonth.com, along with additional safety resources. Again, thank you to Werner for sponsoring this series and to all of you for joining us and being so engaged throughout the month. We'll be engaged throughout this month. So with that, happy National Ladder Safety Month, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.